Hi, my name is Dennis Spurling. I'm not a lawyer, but my daddy is.
Yeah, if you've been hurt in a car accident, call my daddy.
No need to scream and yell like a little kid.
Yeah, no,
My daddy will fight for your rights.
Yeah, fight for your rights.
If you've been involved in a car accident, call my daddy, returning Dennis Spurling.
Hello, I'm attorney Dennis Spurling. If you've been injured in a car wreck, call me at 713-229-0770.
Call my daddy.
63% of youth suicides are from single mother homes. 90% of homelessness and runaway children are from single mother homes.
You can't put that on the mother.
85% of children who show behavioral disorders are from single mother homes. 80% of rapists with anger problems are from single mother homes. 71% of high school dropouts are from single mother homes. 70% of youths in operated institutions are from single mother homes. 80% of all the youths that are in prison are from single mother homes. This shows that boys and girls need both their mother and their father. And I will tell you, as a father, I know from raising my son that he needs both me and his mother.
Raise your hand if you're married. None of you are married. Raise your hand if you would like to be married to your baby's father. One. The rest of you who don't plan to get married, why don't you plan to get married? I'd like to know that.
You already have your child to think about, and then a whole family to care for. You know, it's a lot of responsibility, and then you don't want the commitments.
I wouldn't want no man holding me down, because I think I can make it as a single parent.
But don't you think you might need help in raising that baby from a man?
Not really. I didn't have a father. My father wasn't in the home, so you know it really, male figures are not substantially important in the family.
Raise your hand if you're married. None of you.
Now that you're walking in the living rooms, you're seeing more and more and more.
We have different attributes: smart, tough, fast, disciplined with character.
Yep.
We're looking at now quarterbacks are different.
Yeah.
We want mother, father, dual parent.
Mm-hmm.
We want that kid to be 3, 5 and up, because he's got to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad decisions off the field at all,
Mm-hmm.
because he has to be a leader of men. It's so many different attributes and what we look for when we see a quarterback. And you would love a coach's son. Somewhere that the coach has coached him, and I'm not going down my road, but I see you smiling.
Because I know who your quarterback is.
He's
right
talking
now.
about my son. I didn't just build a template for my son, but that's what really we look for in quarterbacks. Different positions are different. Like O lineman, I look for dual parent homes,
Right.
a strong father that they adhered to,
Right.
Smart kid, at least 3 and above.
You're also describing Hurts.
Yeah,
as
tough.
well. I mean,
physical. I mean, offensive lineman. Defensive lineman is totally opposite.
what do you mean?
Single mama, trying to get it. He's on free lunch. I mean, I'm talking about just trying to make it. He trying to rescue mama. Like mama barely made the flight.
Trying to get out the mud.
And I want him to just go get it. It's a whole different attributes that you look for in different positions, and we have.
Additionally, with the parental background and more, position by position. Chad, what Deion said as a head coach, he's the only one that can say it and not make headlines with this.
Well, I don't know that he's the only one that could say it, but he's definitely one of probably a select few that could get away with it. If Mike Gundy said that, he's probably fired or at least suspended or having to issue an apology. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
Just stating the obvious here. I have zero issue with what he said, first and foremost. No problem with it at all. I do think it's covered completely different if it's not Deion Sanders saying that. Everything he said, Hutton, is something that we've heard from college coaches before in private conversations. You're looking for different things, different family backgrounds based on position, right? I've had a college coach tell me, if you don't have 7 to 15 guys on your team, that you got to keep a thumb over them because you're worried about what they may be up to.
Yeah, rough around the edges.
Because they're wired that way, then you're probably not going to win a national championship. Now, when coaches get to the podium and talk about culture and family and student athletes and all those things are things they're not going to say. I love the fact that Deion Sanders feels empowered and emboldened enough to say what he feels. So I'm never going to crush a guy for being honest. I think those comments are covered very differently if it's not Deion Sanders saying it, especially when you get into, I want a defensive lineman from a single parent home, right? Those are things normally said in private that aren't said in public.
Yeah, Bob Costas is going to join,
What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the broadcast. I hope everybody is having a great day. I hope everybody had a great night, great morning, wherever you are. We're going to have a conversation today. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about some comments made by Deion Sanders relative to some of the issues that we talk about here all the time on YouTube. But before we get started, I'm going to give a big shout out to Cerebral Inquirer. Thank you so much, King Barracuda. Dennis Spurling, one of the heroes of his generation. No, brother, I'm just a humble servant of the Most High God. I'm not a hero. I'm not your leader. I'm just simply here to point some truths out to you. Any credit that you give me, you should give to the Most High. I'm not telling you guys anything I wouldn't tell my sons. On top of that, I do this purely out of my own self-interest. Why? Because I realize that even though I've made it, even though I'm successful, if other Black men don't feel the same way I do, then they will be frustrated. They will be angry. They will take their frustration out on other Black men through violence. And so what I do here today is done solely for my own self-preservation. So don't give me any credit. Give all the credit to the Most High. Whatever you call that one creator of all that we know, that's who all the credit goes to. But thank you so much, and I'm humbly appreciative of that honorable mention and referring to me as one of the heroes of this generation. But I cannot accept that. I am simply just a humble servant of the Most High God. Nevertheless, thank you so much. Jamal Smith, this title has me thinking about Will Smith couldn't control his emotions, but Chris Rock could. What you're going to find after we finish this conversation, which is related loosely about sports and how sports teams are chosen, how this billion-dollar industry, the football industry or the pro football industry, is able to figure out a personality of a person. Mind you, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars each year vetting new recruits. And so they know a lot. They get the best psychologists, the best psychiatrists to figure these guys out. And so because of that, man, we got to pay attention when somebody like Deion Sanders speaks. But before we get started, the first thing I want to do is make sure I give a big shout out to all my guys. Where's my wrench mob at? Everybody who has a wrench, hit the #1 button. All my wrench mob dudes, man, go ahead and hit the #1 button, man. Let me know you're in here. Make sure we keep the wrench mob. Make sure we keep the chat room kosher. You know what I'm saying? Big shout out to who else? Everybody who's joined, all the people, all the members. Thank you so much. And of course, I always give a big shout out to my guys. Let me see. RD, thank you so much for your urban my guys who are in here. Anyway, let's do this. As you guys know, Deion Sanders made some comments. I showed them here at the beginning. And, you know, I know there's a lot of women that don't like to hear criticism related to single mothers just because we got so many single mothers in the Black community right now. But the bottom line is it has to be addressed. Okay, we need to talk about it. So here's the thing. You don't have to like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because it needs to be said. But before I do, make sure you understand that I do this from a place of love because I'm concerned about Black men. I'm concerned about Black people in the United States, and I want to see us do better. Nevertheless, if it hurts you, it hurts you. It is what it is. I'm not concerned about your feelings. I'm concerned about the fact that our group, that we call foundational Black Americans, those who came up out of slavery, there's no other place called foundational Black America stand. And so if we don't save ourselves, no one will. Now, unfortunately, all my brothers are not going to be able to get passports and vacate. All of them are not going to be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm just about to up and move to Thailand or Brazil or something. That's not available to everybody. Most of these Black men are going to be here. And it is my responsibility and the responsibility of those who would to tell you and hopefully advise you that there are different paths you could take, or at least warn you about what is obvious to those who have experience and knowledge of history. And so that's what I'm doing. Nevertheless, we're going to get started as soon as I come back.
There you go. I like that clap. Woo! Not bad to be light skin, huh?
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. So here we go, single mothers. Deion Sanders, and just in case you guys didn't see it, let's go run this back again. I want y'all to hear what he said.
Walking in the living rooms, you're seeing more and more and more.
We have different attributes: smart, tough, fast, disciplined with character. Yep. We're looking at now quarterbacks are different.
Yeah.
We want mother, father, dual parent. Mm-hmm. We want that kid to be 3, 5 and up because he's got to be smart. Mm-hmm. Not bad decisions off the field. At all, because he has to be a leader of men. It's so many different attributes and what we look for when we see a quarterback. And you would love a coach's son. Somewhere that the coach has coached him, and I'm not going down my road. I see you smiling.
I know who your quarterback is right now.
He's talking about my son. I didn't just build a template for my son, but that's what really we look for in quarterbacks. Different positions are different. Like O lineman, I look for dual parent homes,
right?
A strong father that they adhered to,
right?
Smart kid, at least 3.3 and above.
You're also describing Hurts.
Yeah, tough.
Well. I mean,
physical. I mean, offensive line. My defensive line is totally opposite.
What do you mean?
Single mama, trying to get it. He's on free lunch. I mean, I'm talking about just trying to make it. He's trying to rescue mama. Like mama barely made the flight.
trying to get out the mud.
And I want him to just go get it. It's a whole different attributes that you look for in different positions, and we have that stuff just chronicled. We know what we want, and we go get it.
We go get it. Shout out to Deion Sanders for keeping it 100, man. I appreciate that. And we're going to use this as a teaching tool. And I don't care how mad it makes people. It is what it is. And it's necessary because these men, like other men who deal with men all the time, understand what it takes to make men and understand how to read and anticipate the character that a man will have, especially when he's put under the gauntlet, when he's put under the pressure that men are put under when it comes to playing a sport like football, which is probably one of the last gladiator sports that we have, other than, of course, MMA and some of these other things. Shout out to Tampa Bong. He says, shout out from the Philippines. It's cold outside. It should be, baby. Shout out to Cerebral Inquirer, J.M. King, Barracuda. God gave you the tools. You use them well. You have a conscience. It is through him, but you get credit for being part of his work when you can walk away. All praises to the Most High. Thank you so much. So here's the thing, fam. Let's just go ahead and jump on in this. Deion Sanders struck a nerve, right? And because he pointed out that the nuclear family homes produce better, more mentally stable children, right? And we know this both statistically and in general from my own experience. Nobody's going to deny that. I would hope nobody would deny that. The single mother home is simply just doesn't do that. And people hate those facts. And they love the lie that women can do it too, especially when it comes to boys, something that the last 40 years or 50 years in the Black community has proven that they can't do. So no more lying. You know, there's no need to continue trying to bandage these silly emotions that these lovely ladies are having. Let's talk about it. I think that's important. And here's the thing you got to understand. As I said earlier, the stats support it. Prominent researchers and governmental agencies support what Deion is saying. There's a higher percentage of delinquency. There's a higher percentage of, we'll call it apist. Okay. There's a higher percentage of out of wedlock birth rates. And all of this has a lot to do with emotional men, highly emotional, easily charged men. If you look into the criminal justice system, the number of men who are incarcerated, 70% of men in prison right now come from single mother homes. A drug addiction, there's a higher, it's higher when it comes to single men raised in single mother homes. And what it's doing right now, it's undermining the well-being of Black people in the United States. It's undermining our communities. And we're simply repeating the cycles, generation after generation. These single mothers are proud. They're proud. They're proud of being single mothers. There's no shame left. Matter of fact, there are women who are third generation single mothers, and they're proud of their grandchildren and great grandchildren, meaning they're proud of the women who gave birth to more children out of wedlock. Although this is a problem and it needs to be addressed, and we see the effects of this problem all the time. And so we need to begin to speak to this truthfully. Okay? At this generation and time we're living in, Black American women, single mothers, it's become the norm to be a single mother and a Black woman. It's just synonymous with each other. And Black women are mad at Deion because they know, even though he didn't mention any race specifically, they're the ones that feel guilty because we have a single motherhood epidemic in the Black community. Deion came from a single mother home. So he, like many others, understands exactly what goes on there. Deion is a rare breed. He's literally one of the greatest defensive players of all time. And for those of you guys who don't know, he played defensive back and in Florida and also in the NFL for multiple teams, won multiple Super Bowls. His son also comes from a single mother. and think about that. But of course, there's a different situation because his dad is what? Deion Sanders, and he was heavily involved in his life. But there are other players who come from single mother homes. People like the great Ray Lewis, linebacker for Baltimore, right? And these men who made it, they reference these other great men, but they also reference their life growing up, living with a single mothers and the hardships they had to deal with. Prime said he didn't say any color. And if you listen to him, he didn't, right? He was talking about single parents in general, single mothers in general. But see, as I said, his quarterback came from a single parent home, his mom, who Deion was married to. And again, that's the coach's son, so it's a special situation. Here's the thing. We have to acknowledge the fact that the only people who are upset about this, the only people who feel attacked are Black American women, right? But we're facing a single mother epidemic, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Black women are virtually synonymous with single motherhood right now. From 1890 to 1950, Black American women were statistically more likely to get married than white American women. So what happened? Why is it flipped? Well, what happened was government intervention all the wrong way in the form of public assistance programs, the whole Great Society thing that began in 1965. Statista Research Department on September 30th, 2022 indicated that there are around 15 million families with female householders, female head of houses with no spouse in the United States. And that's an increase from the previous year. And they never mentioned any race. But we know that largely, when you look at it, there's a higher percentage of Black American women who have children out of wedlock. The national average as of 2014 is 40%. Of births out of wedlock. 40% of women who are having children, shout out to Cody Marshall, are having them out of wedlock. Whites are 29%, Hispanics are 53%, and Blacks are 71% as of 2014. Okay, and the proportions of such birth for those groups were lower 50 years ago. So we see single motherhood is becoming more popular. So we need to try to figure out what it's doing to these young boys. Right? He didn't specify race. He just said, we look for kids who come from single mother homes for our defensive players. Okay? There's some white single moms. There's some Hispanic single moms. There's some Samoan single moms. We get that. The problem is Black American women had a whole lot to say. Why? Because a hit dog gonna holler. And the thing is, the response to Deion's statement proves that what he said is true. People who are mad at what he said act like he created their situation because he spoke about how coaches can benefit from the trauma and the BS that potential players have to deal with, right? These are the attributes that he didn't create in these players. They got that from their homes. He didn't make any of these single mothers. All he's doing is acknowledging the fact, like hundreds of other coaches, thousands of other coaches around the country, this is what they're looking for. And let me tell you something else, ladies. All this outrage, and I'm talking to you Black American women, all this outrage, America is growing tired and less tolerant of Black American women and their opinions. I'm going to tell you why. Because they're becoming more and more irrational. And here's another reason. The image that Black American women are putting forth, being, with your horrible social skills that you've been exhibiting, your criminality, some of the disrespect, people are just getting tired and are no longer willing to just deal with Black American women and just ignore them, right? The only people that really care about what Black American women think in general are Black American women and the Skittles Mafia and the weak plantation simps that follow you hook, line, and sinker. But I think what we're doing now, and I would want to give credit to what we do here on YouTube, is that we're beginning to reach a turning point in Black culture and politics and society. And we're able to talk about these things And, you know, it really doesn't matter what anybody else says. I bind myself to speaking the truth. Some people say whatever they want to say, but, you know, I'm bound by that. But nevertheless, we are definitely making headway here, and we're making a lot of change. So here's the thing. A lot of women become moms before they become wives, okay? And all the kids, you know, that I remember who were bad or disruptive or had issues, they came from single mother homes, okay? And that's not to say that you can't have a bad kid come from a two-parent home, but it was less likely, especially if you had a strong male role model in the house. Realistically, how can you teach your child and go to work and raise your child, and you got a job, and then when you come home, you got chores, and then you want to go to sleep, and then you got to go back to work the next day? You really can't do it. How can a person juggling all of that realistically even be a happy person, you know, who maintains their dreams and goals of their own and still be a good parent? It's impossible. It's nearly an impossible job. And so when you become a single mom, you basically jump into a situation where you're 100% responsible for another human life with no help. And so it's impossible to do that. And so, of course, if we know it's impossible, then more likely than not, people are failing at it. So let's just accept that, right? And this is just another example of Black folks getting upset about what we know to be right. We idolize and we indulge in this bad behavior and these lifestyles that we know is wrong and immoral and is leading us down the wrong track. And if they have a problem with the dynamics of the Black community, right, you got a problem with it, what do? We need to change our ways. And most of us with good sense do have a problem with it. All right. So here's the thing. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. I think I need like another 600 people before we get to the next level. I'm trying to get to 60,000 people this week. So y'all make sure you subscribe to the channel if you hadn't, and also hit the thumbs up button. Here's the thing. If no one's allowed to call out our shortcomings, how can we get better? How can we make these changes? There's no way to do it. We need to raise ourselves up out of this hell that we found ourselves in. Coach Prime has just given us some tricks, right, on how this thing runs, how this recruitment things run, how the NFL moves, how college football operates. And see, you lovely ladies are so emotional, and you simps are so emotional. You're offended at this gift of game that he's given us. You're missing out on this secret message. Now, they know the game, right? They know that. Now that they know the game, I should say, we need to change our mindset and address. You want more Black quarterbacks? You want better men? You want more thoughtful, less emotional men? Well, you know, let's change the mindset. Let's begin to raise better children, right? He was just showing you the ditch that we've been falling in. Every time we cross this path, we fall in this ditch, right? And you keep falling in this ditch because you don't know where it is. But now he's telling you where it is. Instead of sitting back and paying attention and soaking up the game that he's given, you choose to be unproductive and pretend like you're a victim. And to me, the victim is the beggar's position, which is the most vulnerable. And that's never a good position for anybody, much less a group of people to be in. I had no idea, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I played football. I had no idea that positions on teams were assessed based on upbringing. I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that these young men, myself included, were being judged because of what happened in their households. And instead of recognizing that you should, hey, accept this for what it is, because these are what the experts are saying, people are finding problem with the truth. And those people are not willing to change. And that's going to be a problem. Shout out to the Toothless Tiger. Thank you so much for the super chat. Shout out to Wrench Turner on the Wood Council. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you. So here's the thing. this apparently is the norm in recruiting. And I agree, after thinking about what Deion said, I agree with everything he said. I mean, even the white guy said it. The white gentlemen who were on the broadcast that followed up Deion Sanders' words, like they said, if anyone else said it, they'd be in trouble. But I'm glad he said it. You see? Many of you, and myself included in part, not all the way, but after being raised by a single mom, it takes decades to recover. In other words, you're not raised by a single mother, you survive your single mother. And let me tell you something else. In the short time span that a coach has to coach a kid up and get him ready to play high-level football at a Division I school or in the NFL, they don't have endless amount of time to spend coaching the kid and raising him emotionally, especially if he's emotionally sensitive or effeminate or underdeveloped, right? He can't handle hard coaching, or he can't bear heavy burdens of responsibility that comes with leadership, especially at quarterback. They don't have time for that. Football is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year game, and it's an industry. So hell with your feelings. All right? Whether you're a woman, regardless of your race, nobody cares. This is money they're talking about. And on top of that, these men are talking about a sport that's dominated by men. And this is how they make their money, serious money. Shout out to Highlander 2016. Why so many brothers get rich but want to be in the hood? Right. Talk about it. Everything Deion said was truth. Everybody knows football is a gladiator sport, so his breakdown of what coaches want is just sobering. Black American women, you're mad. You go to school, you get all these psychology degrees. They'll talk to you with this psychobabble for 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, and twice on Sunday and 3 times on Saturday. But you want to sidestep the obvious point that Deion made. How can none of y'all have chose to put this together? This regarding the psychology of black men raised in these chaotic homes by these single moms. What he said is the norm in the recruiting world, and the experts agree. He's simply saying out loud when no one else was. Let me help you out. What did he say? Let me explain this to you. Y'all with me? Y'all gonna get mad? Huh? I hope you get mad. Quarterbacks and offensive linemen, they want them to come from good families. Why? Because good, intact families, they tend to do better working together, especially when there are both parents in the house. There's a lot of cooperation that goes on between mom and dad and the kids. Another thing about coming from an intact family is trust is a big thing. You got to be able to trust your family members. And on the offensive side of the ball, especially as an offensive tackle, timing, where you put your feet, the timing of the snap. And the snap is when the ball goes from the center who hikes the ball to the quarterback. Trust is a big thing on offense, especially with the quarterback and the offensive line. Broken family homes don't build trust. They build dependability. That's one of the differences. As an offensive player, especially your quarterbacks and your offensive linemen, those players get in trouble a lot less. They make better grades. They have longer careers. Defensive players, on the other hand, look at Tom Brady, right? He's been playing since like 2001. It's over 20 years later. Defensive players, they need guys who didn't have it all growing up. Guys who use football as an outlet. Guys who use football as a release. They crave on that football. They need that. Shout out to Dusty Nuts, Book of Temptations, 6 and 9, the She-Heathen, so much the folly of chaos. and pain. Her offspring's wrath goes further than 1,000 battering rams. And thou shalt stumble in the midst of this juggernaut. Amen. Amen. Big shout out to my man Dusty Nuts. Deacon Dusty. That's your new name. Deacon Dusty Nuts. Praise God. Praise God. The head deacon, as a matter of fact. Head deacon Dusty Nuts. Praise God. Oh man, I love you guys, man. But anyway, so the difference between defensive players, when you got a defensive guy, he needs that release, man, that contact. He needs that. Defensive players are dependent on they depend upon that win, right? They depend on that win. They need that. Everybody wants to win, of course, right? But defensive players usually get in trouble. They got anger issues, they got emotional issues, they got drug issues. Just look at the history of them, and we're gonna talk about a couple of them. All right, decent defensive players, they have a certain desperation for success. The D-line players, they're out of control, and they're filled with chaos, just like single mothers are out of control, right? They got that sick'em mentality, right? I mean, this was just a casual conversation that took place. When you really begin to think about it, you pick up on a lot of stuff, a lot of unspoken truths. And this goes into the effect. This, more than any other conversation that I saw, goes deep into the deficits that black men who are being raised, or really all men, but specifically black men who are being raised by single mothers, have to deal with. And I think we just need to go ahead and accept it and don't run away from it. All right. Now, the thing is, right, these guys were just having a casual conversation. It wasn't like he was pointing the camera at any particular body, right? They're just certain qualities that coaches are looking for on his team. And all those things he mentioned create a strong, cohesive team. And it depends largely on their upbringing. Now, of course, there's a requirement for talent, right? But what I want you guys to understand is there's a history. There was 3 positions that blacks, or that they claim blacks were too unintelligent or weren't intelligent enough to play. And this was around about the 1950s when they start really integrating football. And that was quarterback. And the quarterback is the person everybody knows. The center, who is the person who is the offensive lineman who hikes the ball to the quarterback. He has to know all the plays. He pretty much has to know all the blocking schemes of the guards and the tackles and the tight end. He has to know where the running back is going to go, where the fullback is going to go. So this is a real mental game. And the middle linebacker, of course, he is the quarterback of the defense. So he's got to be a smart, in-tune player. Instincts and rage are not going to do it. See, these positions, hear me, listen, these positions require great leadership skills. And you don't get that in single mother households. You don't get great leadership in single mother households. Okay? So just think about that. Now, the other thing you got to understand, and I'm just going to draw this to some conclusions because I want you to understand this generally. There's no glory in playing offense. There's especially let me say it like this. There's no glory in playing offensive line. If you're a wide receiver, if you're a running back, if you're a quarterback, if you're a tight end, there's plenty of glory in it for you. But the reason that Coach Prime specifically mentioned, hey, I need smart guys who play offensive line with at least a 3.3 GPA who had a strong father, is because the only time anyone notices you when you play offensive tackle, offensive guard, or center is when you miss your block and the quarterback gets sacked or your running back gets tackled in the backfield for a loss, okay? And then guess what? Now you got your coach cursing you out, grabbing you by your helmet, smacking you, telling you to get your head out your ass, get your head in the game, all kinds of stuff. And if you can't take that kind of, and basically the whole team is looking at your ass, right? So if you can't take that sort of ridicule and criticism, if you can't take that sort of chastisement, which is often very harsh, right? It'll break you down and it'll make you quit. That's not something that somebody who's raised by a baby mama can deal with. You can't, it's not, you gotta be a lot tougher on that side, right? Now here's the flip side. Defensive linemen, as he mentioned, they got to take a lot of abuse, right? They got to take a lot of abuse. They're often the smaller man, but here's the thing. They get rewarded for taking that abuse when they finally get a sack or they cover a fumble, or they run one, they recover a fumble in the end zone or something like that, or they catch the running back in the backfield for a loss. They get glory. They get glory as a reward. And what comes with that glory? Attention and praise. This is what they get in exchange for abuse. And this is what they get. They get glory and they get attention. Is this starting to hit home yet? See, these men inherit that mentality from their mothers. And that's why these guys are saying, hey man, this is what's necessary. Like this is what we do. This is what we do. I'm okay with this because it's not just the money it feeds me. Now, here's the thing. What does it take to make a good quarterback? Let's look at some of the great quarterbacks. Right? Let's look at some of the great quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Eli Manning. All of these guys are raised by great guys. All these guys are raised by strong men. Russell Wilson. What do we know about him? Huh? He was born in Richmond, Virginia. His parents, Harrison and Benjamin Wilson III. His dad was a lawyer. His mother, Tammy Wilson, was a nurse. Patrick Mahomes. He was born, in Tyler, Texas. Pat Mahomes, famous MLB pitcher, and his mom, Randy Martin. They got married. Eventually got divorced, but they were married. He had a dad, strong dad, successful dad. You see that twice. Look at Cam Newton, right? Cam Newton was born to Jackie and Cecil Newton Sr., so he had a dad. He's a junior, right? And his dad was a safety for the Dallas Cowboys in 1983 and in 1984 for the Buffalo Bills. His younger brother, Cecil Newton, he played center in the NFL. And their youngest brother, Kalen, was a quarterback for Howard back in the mid-2020s. Shout out to Simple Shit TV. Here's the thing you got to understand. Cam Newton and Cecil both were in the NFL players, came from two-parent homes, both of them from South Fulton, right? Adam Pac-Man Jones lived a few minutes away. Totally different story. Look at Pac-Man. Look at Cam Newton. Here's another one, Jalen Hurt. This is the guy that just went to the Super Bowl, right? And he played for the Eagles when Patrick Mahomes was playing for the Chiefs. This Super Bowl that just played. His father, right? His father, Mr. Hurts, or his name is Averian, was a football coach at Channel View High School, was right here in Houston, Texas. And throughout his son's school career, he was a high school coach. Now, something else which is a telltale sign, he also participated in powerlifting. His son, the quarterback, was a power lifter. As a sophomore in high school, Hurts squatted 500 pounds of weight, right? And eventually became the regional finalist at 198 pounds. What that tells me is that dad had been working with him for a minute, because you're not just going to be 15 or 16 years old, able to come to college, and squat 500 pounds as a 15 or 16-year-old, right? Dad, that lets me know that dad was a strong influence around the house. All the guys I mentioned were black quarterbacks. Now look at Doug Williams. Who is Doug Williams? He was the first black quarterback to win a football game. He was born to Robert and Laura Williams in Zachary, Louisiana, right outside of Baton Rouge, 6th of 8 children, right? They grew up poor, but they were happy. This is what he said. He had strong numbers coming out of college. Eddie Robinson picked him up, took him to Grambling, recognized his talent, and Doug ended up doing what? Being the first black quarterback to win the MVP and the Super Bowl. I remember that game. I saw it. And so you see what it takes to be a successful quarterback. Now, what does it take to be an unsuccessful quarterback? Let's look at that. Now, we talked about Russell Williams, Patrick Mahomes, Cam Newton, Jalen Hurt, Doug Williams. All of these are successful black quarterbacks. 1, 2, 3, they've all been to the Super Bowl. 3 of them have won. Now, contrast that with Michael Vick. Let's talk about Michael Vick. Vic was born in Newport News, second of 4 children to Brenda Vic and Michael Bodie. Both of them were teenagers, unmarried teenagers when they had it. His mother worked 2 jobs, and she obtained financial aid and public assistance and had help from her parents, which means what? The daddy wasn't around. His father worked at the shipyards, sandblasted and did spray. He did labor work. That means, you know, they don't even have time to raise these kids. They weren't married, or they did get married after Mike turned 5 years old. But guess what? The kids elected to continue carrying their mother's name. What does that tell you about them? Shout out to T. Martin, or Dusty Nutt says T. Martin and Amory Rogers' father. What does that tell you about the fact that the kids the parents got married and the kids elected not to carry the father's name? It lets me know they had no respect for their dad. And in certain interviews, his mother will tell you she had no control over Mike Vick. And look what happened to his career. Look what happened to Mike Vick. He ends up in federal prison for dog fighting of all things. Are you kidding me? Right? Here's another one, Jamarcus Russell. Born in Mobile, Alabama. His father's name was Bobby Lloyd. He was a machine operator, and his mother's name was Zena Lynn Russell Anderson, and she was employed as a secretary. They weren't married. Jamarcus Russell is known as the biggest bust that has ever played quarterback in the NFL. So are we starting to see something? You got a bunch of guys raised by mom and dad in a stable home, or at least a strong dad, and then you got a bunch of guys raised by single mothers. That's at the quarterback position. What happens when things get tough? They break down. That's what happens when things get tough. Now, I talked to you guys about offensive linemen and why some of the best offensive line. What is it about best offensive line? They listen, they follow instructions, they're mean as hell, but they're under control. Because you can't let your emotions get the best of you, because if you let your emotions get the best of you, guess what? You lose control, you get a penalty, bam, you lose a touchdown, you lose yardage. So you got to follow instructions. Now, what about defensive tackles, right? We'll talk about this in a minute. We'll come right back. Y'all make sure y'all hit the number 1 button. Show your appreciation. I'm going to run this clip again. I want you to see
exactly what he's looking for positionally with the parental background and more position by position. Chad, what Deion said as a head coach, he's the only one that can say it and not make headlines with this.
Well, I don't know that he's the only one that could say it, but he's definitely one of probably a select few that could get away with it. If Mike Gundy said that, he's probably fired or at least suspended or having to issue an apology. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
Just stating the obvious here. I have zero issue with what he said, first and foremost. No problem with it at all. I do think it's covered completely different if it's not Deion Sanders saying that. Everything he said, Hutton, is something that we've heard from college coaches before in private conversations. You're looking for different things, different family backgrounds based on position, right? I've had a college coach tell me, if you don't have 7 to 15 guys on your team, that you got to keep a thumb over them because you're worried about what they may be up to.
Yeah, rough around the edges.
Because they're wired that way, then you're probably not going to win a national championship. Now, when coaches get to the podium and talk about culture and family and student athletes and all those are things they're not going to say. I love the fact that Deion Sanders feels empowered and emboldened enough to say what he feels. So I'm never going to crush a guy for being honest. I think those comments are covered very differently if it's not Deion Sanders saying it, especially when you get into, I want a defensive lineman from a single parent home, right? Those are things normally said in private that aren't said in public.
Yeah, Bob Costas is going to join,
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Shout out to Dusty Nuts, who said the 1980 Miami Hurricanes was a definitely example of fatherless homes. Yeah, Jimmy Johnson went throughout the South Florida looking for impoverished kids. Makes sense to me, man. And now you bring up Miami, all right? So I want to talk. So he also talked about defensive tackles. We talked about the quarterbacks. We see what they have in common, right? Now let's look at some of the greatest defensive tackles who've ever existed. Shout out to Warren Sapp. You guys know who Warren Sapp is, right? Everybody knows Warren Sapp. Warren was the man. He was born in Orlando, raised in Plymouth, Florida by a single mother. Jerome Brown. We know who Jerome Brown is. Shout out to all my guys who know who Jerome Brown is. Who was he? He actually had 2 parents, but he was the second youngest of 10 children. Brown's father, Willie, worked as a truck mechanic to make ends meet, and Brown had his share of off-the-field shenanigans as a teenager. He had 2 children with 2 different women, right, before he was out of his teens. And he once chugged a beer in front of a teacher. That lets you know he was just out of control. Dad wasn't really around. John Randall. We know who John Randall, born in from the Vikings, born in Mumford, Texas. He was raised in poverty. He worked 2 jobs. It was just him and his brother, and all of them one played in the NFL for 8 years, and of course he played defensive end. Here's another one, just so you know, it's not a black thing. Brian Urlacher, right? He was born to a mother and father who were married, right? In Pasco, Washington. His parents raised him and his younger brother, Casey Urlacher, but then his parents separated, and he ended up living with his mom in New Mexico, right? They're in Washington. Dad's in Washington. He's in New Mexico. So what did he do? He immersed himself in sports. You guys know Brian Urlacher, one of the greatest linebackers that the Bears ever had, right? But look at him. So there's another defensive player. And you want to talk about, let's talk about basketball players. And shout out to Jerry, my man, Wiggy Will. He said, Jerry Tarkington made a living off those kids. Yeah, he did, man. Yeah, he did. They know. You got basketball players. What do you think when you think of Michael Jordan and LeBron James? Michael had a strong dad. We remember when Michael lost his dad. LeBron James raised by a single mom. Remember when she was messing around with one of the players on his team, right? Think about it. LeBron James is just not, he's not cut like Michael Jordan. He cannot occupy that leader position. Compare him to the late, great Kobe Bryant. He's not a finisher. He doesn't have that killer instinct. He doesn't have that cold, calm, methodic killer instinct that only comes from being raised by a strong father. See, there comes a certain level of mental toughness that comes along with having a father in your life. Look at Michael Jordan. Look at Kobe Bryant. Both had fathers in their lives. As a result, they're mentally tough. They both stayed with one team their whole career. They didn't bounce around trying to get a better spot. What they did is they made mediocre players who play high enough so that they could win championships. LeBron James and Kevin Durant, they come from single mother homes, and they don't have the mental toughness or the leadership skills to do that. You wonder why we're losing baseball players? You wonder why there's not a whole lot of black athletes in the big league in baseball? Why are we losing so many positions to Dominicans? Huh? Why? Well, first of all, when you go down to the Dominican Republic, you don't have a whole bunch of kids running around. These kids are playing baseball, and they got a whole bunch of men around them. Black American women have raised an entire group of men who don't follow authority, who don't like authority, who can't control their emotions, who are overly emotional, and they can't be coached. In a baseball team, right, you got to be methodical. You got to be patient. It's a skill, right? It's a skill. You got to be taught these skills. You got to be patient. You can't can't anger your way into success in baseball. It doesn't work like that. And Dominicans, irrespective of their poverty, they got strong masculine role models down there. And they're being coached up constantly, and they're being coached by men. So guess what? They make better ball players, and they make more money. Somebody said baseball is corny. Baseball players are the richest, okay, hands down. And they have the longest, and they have longevity. You want to get a real good example? Mike Tyson. He's a perfect example of an athlete being raised by a single mother and filled with chaos and rage and confusion. He was aggressive, and he was also feminine. He was also emotional, okay? It took his trainer Customato, who he said was like a father figure, who temporarily was able to install some masculine traits in him and some discipline, and taught him the patience and how to use his mind, right? And some techniques in certain situations so that he could be what? The champion. And guess what happened when he passed away? What happened to Mike Tyson when Customato passed away? He reverted back to that single mother upbringing and all those things that he learned. Now, that said, I want to introduce you guys to two of my favorite guests. They should be here. Gentlemen, are you guys there?
Yes, we're here.
All right. All right. Can you all hear my boy here? That's Roman. Roman, can you can everybody hear Roman? Can y'all hear Roman there? Let me know if you can hear Roman, guys. Can y'all hear him?
I'm talking right now.
All right. Yeah, you can hear. How about where's my other son at? Where's my big boy?
Hello, I'm here.
All right, you guys there? All right, say hello to everybody in the audience.
Hello.
All right, you guys, if you guys can hear my boys, hit the number 1 button. Let me know you guys can hear Dennis and Roman. So here's the thing, fellas. I know you guys are, I know I don't have a whole lot of time because I got stuff to do. But let me kind of introduce you a little bit to my boys here. I'm gonna take a point of personal privilege, and I'm going to pull up. But Dennis, you're my oldest son. How old are you, son?
I'm 15.
15. And you've been taking martial arts for how long now?
7 or 8 years now.
Well, let's be specific. Tell them specifically. When did you start taking martial arts?
2012.
2012. And what year is it now? 2023? And you're 15. So you've been practicing martial arts for about 11 years in your life. Roman, when did you start practicing martial arts?
When I was 3, I think. Yeah, 3.
3 or 4. 3 or 4. Okay, so tell us about your belt accomplishment. Start with your first martial art. Tell me what you've been doing. What do you study over there?
I have, so our first martial arts was Kung Fu. We started it, we've been doing it for 11 years now. That was our first. He's been doing it for 11 years. That was our first one. And our belt in it right now, our first degree black belt.
So tell me, what did it take to get your first degree black belt? Because a lot of people may not understand what that means.
So there's the basic black belt, and then there's the first degree black belt. So we're above regular black belt. We're first degree black belt.
So you got a first degree black belt in Kung Fu, right? And then so that means you got basically for those laymen, they basically they've earned 2 black belt degrees. And that's just in Kung Fu. Okay. Dennis, I got some video up here of you from a couple of Saturdays ago. Over at the American Martial Arts Center. So this is a grown man that you're fighting with, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so this is full contact. This is these are real life. You're getting kicked, you're getting punched. Now this is just one martial arts that you study, right?
Yes.
Now tell us about your other martial arts class. And I actually got something else here, Roman. I'm showing you sparring with that big kid over there, and he's trying to take your head off. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, this is a real fight that these boys are in. You see that? And so and how long have you been at it? You've been at it 9 years too, right? And you're 13 years old. So for the most part, go ahead. What were you saying, son?
10 years now, because I'm gonna be. Yeah, I'm 13 right now, and I started when I was 3, so about 10 years now.
Right, about 10 years. And you guys also, you got black belts in you have black belts in Kung Fu, and you also have a black belt in what other form of striking art?
Shotokan.
Shotokan. You guys also compete in jiu-jitsu, right?
Yes.
And what is your belt level in jiu-jitsu? Then I'm actually showing you at the competition where you took second place a couple of weeks ago, just a photograph of it. So you take jiu-jitsu, you take Shotokan, what other martial arts have you studied?
Muay Thai,
Muay Thai. What else?
boxing,
And what else?
Krav Maga,
Krav Maga. And what else?
Krav Maga, Muay Thai, boxing, Shotokan, jiu-jitsu. We've done judo.
And you fought in competitions. You fought overseas before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So here's the thing. I know I've also taught you guys some different things. You've done, you know how to throw knives and daggers and, all sorts of interesting stuff that boys like to do, right? So, that being the case, we kind of prove the point. So here's the thing, fellas. I want to ask your opinion, right? You guys have had me in your life, but your whole life. I was there to pull you out, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You've had experience fighting all sorts of little boys with different personalities, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Roman, you can go first. What has been your experience fighting little boys or boys who are raised by single mothers?
I noticed when I fight boys who are raised by single mothers, it takes a couple punches to the face for them to get provoked, angry. Like they get pretty mad after a couple of punches to the face. They don't really know how to condone themselves better than boys with a father do.
Okay.
They're prone to anger easier from what I've seen.
So you're basically saying there's a difference when you're fighting, so Dennis, tell me about your experience. What is your technique when you're fighting a boy who can't control his emotions?
Usually you provoke them to make them to start making bad decisions, like getting emotional in the middle of the.
And Dennis, there was a tournament you had a couple years back where a little black boy. Do you find and it's okay to speak out the truth. Who do you often find are the ones who don't have fathers in their lives? What race of boys or whatever? You can speak freely, son.
Usually the black boys.
Mm-hmm. So recently there was an experience that we had, with a little black boy at the jiu-jitsu place. What happened there? Roman. So tell them a little background. Don't say the little boy's name or anything, but tell us what happened, why they had you dealing with him the whole time, Roman.
Well, they had me dealing with him because he would always do not appropriate things in class. He would never listen. And he was just there beating up the kids because he was a big boy and all the other kids were smaller. And he was always picking on them and not taking jiu-jitsu very seriously.
Right. And so even though, and see the things you guys got to understand, and shout out to everybody in the audience, just bear with me on this. This is important. These are children talking to you about their perceptions of what, and see, let me explain something to you. You never know a man until you put him under pressure. And the same thing applies for children. The character of your child is going to come out when they start getting punched in the face. The character of your child is going to come out when they put you, when you put them on a football field and they get hit and they feel pain. That's when their character comes out. What my sons are explaining to you, and Dennis, how many times have you fought people in the past 11 years? Give me an estimate, son.
Maybe around 200.
200. Say that again, because they don't believe you. Tell them how many times you've had sparring matches in the past 11 years.
200 or more or less.
More or less. And tell them how that breaks down, because you've been basically sparring every week, right? Every week. And he's giving you guys a light estimate. Every week for the past 11 years, my son is fighting somebody or multiple people. You guys understand that? I'm talking about kicked, punched in the stomach, kneed, elbowed. You see, so this is his perspective. And I'm telling you, he's not telling you that's the truth is it's probably a lot more than 200. You see what I'm saying? It's probably a lot more than 200, but nevertheless, How many times have you fought, Roman?
I've probably fought in about maybe 500 or more.
That's probably a closer number. It's probably closer to 500 times. And so you learn a lot about a person when you punch them in the face. You see, you learn a lot about their character when you hit them and then they respond. So here's the thing, Dennis. Tell me, you know, in your interactions with other boys, what have I taught you guys about fighting dudes with single mothers? What have I taught you guys? Either one of y'all can answer. What do I tell you to do?
Like, hit them so like they get angry and stuff.
Right. What was the first lesson that you guys remember me teaching you about your emotions? What did I tell you? Go ahead and give it to them so they'll know we're not making this up. Tell them at the same time.
Control your emotions or your emotions will control you.
Say it again.
Control your emotions or your emotions will control you.
Control your emotions or your emotions will control you. And what's the other lesson that I taught you about your emotions?
Don't let other people be in control of them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let other people do what? Be in control of your what?
Emotions.
Smiles and what?
Cries, smiles, and cries.
In other words, and what I was explaining to you guys is, see, when you're in a fight with somebody and you're used to using your emotions to get you the results that you want, then now you're getting beat up, you're getting pounded in the face, and you're becoming angry and emotional, and there's somebody just still pounding you and punching on you. What you're going to do? You're going to get over emotional, thinking that's going to give you some extra charge of energy. But what happens when you don't have the technique or the skill set to beat the person in front of you and you just start moving fast? What happens, Roman?
You're going to burn yourself out.
So you're going to burn yourself out. So now you're fighting against your own body and you're fighting against this person in front of you. And so now you force this person to fight two people. You understand that now? You see what I'm saying, boys?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys get it. You guys get it. So here's the thing. And a lot of these folks don't understand, boys, that it takes a father to raise sons. Do you guys think you would be who you are if it wasn't for my influence over you?
No.
Do you know young boys maybe in your life, and you don't have to name any names, do you know young boys who are raised without their fathers? Describe to us how they act at 13 and 15. What have been your observations?
Well, for the kids at my school, they don't really care that much about their academics, and whenever they go to school, they don't really have any respect or dignity. They run around doing whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What has been your experience, Dennis?
Pretty much the same with what Roman said for high school.
But it's happening in high school. So what type of men do you think those guys are going to make?
Goofy ones, not very strong.
Goofy, yeah. And what's going to happen when they get hit with adversity?
They're going to burn themselves out.
They're going to get angry. They're going to get emotional. And they're going to burn themselves out. Do you see why, and I don't know if you guys have been watching the broadcast, but do you see why people like Coach Prime said, I want smart guys who have 3.5 GPAs, which is B+, and I want them to come from homes with a strong father, because you see, when times get tough, you don't want your quarterback throwing the ball into the stands, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want your offensive lineman out there punching people in the face and causing for you to get penalties, right?
Nope.
Right. And so guess what? Emotion might work on the defensive side of the ball when you got to crash through that line and go try to tackle the football player, the guy with the ball, but it doesn't work on the intelligence side. It doesn't work. It doesn't work on the offensive side of the ball. And the same thing applies to fights. Thanks, guys. I'm not going to hold you guys up. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, boys. And you guys, for everybody who doesn't know, I told the boys for their guest appearance, any money that we make while they're on the broadcast, they'll get it themselves and they can split it up amongst themselves. These gentlemen are actually you know, they're elite level fighter. They got multiple black belt degrees. They fought people hundreds of times. You know, for a 13 and a 15-year-old, they have a lot more fight experience than a lot of grown men ever will have. So, you know, and I commend my sons because I've given them orders, I've given them instructions, and they follow through, and that's why I reward them so well. So thank you so much, Mr. Dennis A. Spurling and Mr. Roman A. Spurling. I appreciate you gentlemen, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, and make sure you thank everybody for the donations that they gave you guys while y'all were here, okay?
Thank you all for the donation.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, guys. I'm going to take a quick break. Thank y'all and I'll be right back. Y'all hit the number 1 button. Men, and you're trying to dictate to us what we should do, what I should be telling these men. You came to my page to tell me that I need to tell these men that they need to come to the table with a group of women who have the highest rate of abortion, who have an increasing incarceration rate, who have the highest rate of divorce, who have the highest rate of STDs, the highest out-of-wedlock birth rate, who have known around the world for being strong, independent, and don't need a man, who have, for the past 55 years, used television, radio, mass media of all sorts, movies from The Color Purple to Stella's Got a Groove Back to tell the world that the black man is nothing. And you want me to tell these black men who trust me and love me and appreciate my opinion because I'm truthful that, oh yeah, brother, now it's time to go back to the table because Ivy Johnson said so. That's what you want me to do?
Yeah. We're terrified.
All right, big shout out to you guys. And just so you guys know, my youngest son is a straight A student. My oldest son, and he's in the honor roll. So the grades are there too, because the discipline from martial arts and having a strong father carries over into school, okay? My oldest son is in an advanced engineering program. I think right now he has like 4 A's, a B, and a C. We're working on that C, but the bottom line is this is how you create men, right? It's through discipline, it's through hard work. Shout out to Your Excellence. Slide out to sleep with the third open to the young men. Okay, anything y'all give from this point on, I'm gonna give it to the boys, man. You know, and I really appreciate my children. Shout out to Jamal Smith. But here's the thing, and I want y'all to take this, all right? And you heard it from these young boys. There's a difference between, they explain, there's a difference between fighting with a boy who's raised by a father and fighting with a boy who's raised by a single mother. Fathers teach their sons to control their emotions. Most fathers who are worth their salt, they don't allow their kids to throw tantrums just because they can't have it their way or just because things get difficult. No matter what these kids are going through, right, that daddy is going to check those children for showing out. And in response, the boys raised by fathers learn that there's going to have to be another remedy other than me getting all emotional. Emotions is not going to be the proper remedy, because if I get too emotional, dad's going to crack down on me, and I don't want that. And so they learn that there are the coping mechanisms that women and little girls are allowed to use. That ain't going to work for me, right? And that's why, okay, I got to use my mind on this. I got to focus through this. So guess what? And shout out to CR. So when you fight with them, right, and if they're losing, those boys raised by dads, they're going to maintain their composure because they've been taught to control those emotions. That doesn't mean they're always going to win. Just like Tom Brady, who said, when asked who was his favorite hero, he said, my dad. My dad is my hero. And the man broke down in tears, right? Right? That doesn't mean you're going to win every time, right? But here's the thing. You're not going to make them fight against themselves by forcing them to have to battle you and their own frustrated emotions. So guess what? In turn, you're having to deal with a harder fight because what? They're fighting you consistently. They're not fighting against themselves. Shout out to Big Boss Real Talk. Shout out to the Blizzard Princesses. Thank you so much. Doing hard work, getting good grades in school and kicking ass in the dojo. You guys are lucky to have such a solid father teaching you to write. Hey, man, let me tell you something. I'm going to take just a quick little point of preference here. All of us can be good fathers, man. And it's the time I spend with my sons that's the most important thing. The reason that I have a great relationship with my sons is not because I take them to this and take them to that. I take them to this and take them to that because I can. They don't rebel against me because I put the time in with them. You see, I was there with them. I spend time with them. I'm the one changing their diapers. I'm the one cooking for them. I'm the one talking to them. I'm the one tucking them in. I'm the one picking them up from school. We built trust. And over the years, for the first 10 years, I was only officially supposed to have my kids from Friday at 6 p.m. to Sunday at 6 p.m. But what I did was I made adaptations. I changed my entire lifestyle. I would leave work just so I can pick my kids up at school, talk their mother into let me take them to these different karate and martial arts places, just so I could have that 30 minutes to talk to them on the way there, and that 30 minutes after they finish to talk to them on their way back to their mom's house. So I made the sacrifices to spend more time with my kids. And so now it's paying off. They trust me. They love me. And there's nothing like having the love and trust of your sons. Now that said, and shout out to Metaphorical Tactic, but all of you men can be good fathers, man. It just requires time, fellas. You got to put the time in. Now, the thing is, again, and back to the subject matter, and shout out to my boys and shout out to all the dads out there, man, especially the guys raising boys. I tell my sons when they're fighting little boys that have been raised by women, just keep pounding on them. Just keep pounding on them. Just keep beating them to the punch. Eventually, they're going to become so frustrated and emotional that they're going to quit, right? It doesn't mean they won't keep fighting you, but see, those emotional surges, their technique is failing. They're not strong enough. They're not fast enough. They don't know enough. They can't think their way through it. They're blinded by their emotions. And on top of that, they're draining themselves because they're fighting against their own emotions and at the same time fighting against you. That's what you do. Now, I can put a defensive player on the opposite side of the ball and let him go and go and go until he's spent, right? He can be emotional. We need dudes with issues over there. We need dudes who are willing to sacrifice their body just for the sake of glory, right? We don't need that on the opposite side of the ball. And in real life, we need more black men who are offensive linemen in life. We need more black men who are quarterbacks in life. We don't need so many defensive line. We got enough emotional black men. And let me tell you something else, and I'm going to land this plane, fellas. The best leaders have strong fathers in the home. Those are the best leaders. The commanders in the military come from two-parent homes. While a bunch of the enlisted guys, they come from single-parent homes. The CEOs, the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, the presidents of the United States, most of them, they come from two-parent homes. Most of the worker bees come from single homes. Most of the owners come from two-parent homes. The data speaks for itself. That's what we got to deal with. The worst place for a child to be raised, especially a boy child, is in a single-parent, single-mother home because he does not get what he needs for leadership. He does not get what he needs to be able to run a household, to run a business successfully. Every statistical disadvantage for every major life outcome is associated with being raised in a single mother home. And this is not even an argument. This is statistical fact. What's the solution? How do we fix it? Well, the truth is, fellas, we got to take these women's rights away. And what is the main right that they have? Well, it's them being allowed to raise the children, them having the preference given to them to raise the children. Now, if you're unwilling to take these laws away, if you're unwilling to change this, guess what? We're going to continue suffering and more deterioration in this country, more single motherhood, more broken homes, more broken men. Now, how did it come about that women were allowed to have the children over the father? Well, I'm going to introduce a term to you guys. Y'all write this down. It's called the tender years doctrine. Type that in. All right, we're about to get boring. Y'all ready for boring? You know I'm going to bore your asses. That's what I do. So those of you guys with short attention spans, go ahead and zoom up out of here now. Get on out of here. But we're going to learn something. It's called the tender years doctrine, or the tender years presumption, which has been in existence since about the 19th century. Now, according to common law, the doctrine proposes that during the tender years of a child, which is generally regarded as from ages, from birth to about 4 or under, only the mother is allowed to custody of the child because there is a presumption that she's going to be the better parent. And this is often something that is raised in divorce proceedings or even in child custody proceedings. Furthermore, many courts have held that tender year doctrine violates the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment. Why? Because it's sexist. It says that the mother, solely because of her sex, is a better parent than the father. Clearly, that is a violation of the 14th and the 4th Amendment. And some courts have said, well, you know what? We're going to have to reform this. We're going to have to reform because it ain't right on its face, right? And so they did some steps toward it. Now, where did this come from? Well, here's what you got to understand. Originally, the early English common law, which is where we here in the United States get our law from, granted custody of the young children to the dad. But what happened was, right? What had y'all bored yet? Let me know. I'm giving you the history, but let me. I will bore your asses to death, but I think this is important because you need to understand it for the conversation that you need to have. Women, right, only had a few individual rights, right, before the 19th century. Most women's rights, were derived from the husband's rights and the father's rights, so they were ancillary to what the men in their life had. Under these conditions, women didn't have the right to raise their children after the divorce. The children went to the dad. In the early part of the 19th century, there was a British feminist, right? And who her name was Carolyn Norton, and she began a campaign for women's rights. She was the one that proposed that women should be given custody of their children in the event of the divorce. And this legislative enactment came in the form of what was called the Custody of Infants Act in 1839, right? And that act gave a certain level of discretion to judges during the proceedings in child custody cases and initiated the presumption that the maternal custody or the mother's custody was better for the children. And that age and it went from being 4 and under to 7 and under. And then here's the thing. In 1873, the British Parliament extended this presumption that the mom was the better parent of the child all the way up to 16 years old. And at that time, hell, at 16, you were grown, right? So the tender years doctrine, how did it get from over there to over here? Well, the tender years doctrine spread through many countries around the world because of the influence of England, of the British Empire. Remember, we were a colony of Great Britain. So we get our laws from Great Britain. So of course, when we got questions, we looked at them to try to figure out how do we deal with this. Now, most courts in the U.S., they took up this doctrine in the 19th century and the 20th century. The tender years doctrine is basically the tender years doctrine in child custody cases was incorporated into the U.S. for 100 years, right? And this is all throughout the U.S. It's incorporated in the legislation. But see, at a certain point, they'll tell you, and shout out to Cerebral Inquiry, thank you so much. Now women have more rights than men are destroying the country. And look, it's also in Jamaica too, okay? Understand that this is not just in the U.S. because remember, Jamaica was a territory of of Great Britain also. So it was also there. Dusty Nuts, he said, don't bitch and complain when something happens because you're not ready. This is the shit women talk about. We get caught blindsided because we don't know, pay attention. Yeah, I'm giving you some free game. This is, you need to be able to argue this. When you're fighting for your kid, you need to be able to articulate to your family law lawyer the tender years doctrine. Most of them don't even know. Okay, they don't even understand that. They don't understand the tender years doctrine. They don't teach it in law school. The first time I heard it was about 10 years ago here on the internet. All right. Now, again, most people who are critical of family law court system, in particular those of us who advocate on behalf of men, we contest that the tender years assumption, or that the mom is the better parent, we know is wrong. And what they'll say in response is that they'll say, well, the tender years doctrine has been replaced by joint custody legislation and the best interest of the child rule, which says that the judge is going to do what's in the best interest of the child. But see, here's the problem. It's still in practice, right? And if you look at the fact that most children end up with the mom, you can see it's still in practice nationwide in the United States. So even though it's been technically overruled, it's still in practice. And see, here's how you know there's a bias. I want y'all to hear me on this. The idea that in order to get custody of your children, you as the father have to prove that the mother is an unfit parent before you can be awarded primary custody. Now, the fact that the mother doesn't have to prove that you're an unfit father, right, in order to be granted custody is contrary to what is indicated in the Equal Protection Clause. In other words, you got to prove that she's a horrible mom for you to get the kids. She doesn't have to prove anything. The presumption, it goes to her no matter what. That's the presumption. The presumption is she's going to be the parent with custody of the children. You got a burden to prove. So it's still in place. And this is what we're dealing with. Now, I get it. The tender years doctrine made sense when mom stayed home and we had traditional families and dads worked. It made sense, right? But now that we're all equal, men and women are equal, right? We're going to work, right? This principle should be applied when it comes to parental responsibility, meaning both mother and father have equal rights to physical custody of their children, shared custody, if you will, right? And this is the thing that I want you to understand. And this is the most important thing about this conversation, because we can talk theoretically about what went wrong and why Deion Sanders said this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, we got a bunch of emotional men out there who can't control their emotions, guys. We call them Pookie and Ray Rays. They end up in jail. They end up having kids by women that they shouldn't have even been with. They're looking for love in all the wrong places, right? Now, as far as what Deion Sanders said, was what he said really that controversial? Didn't we all know this already? And I want y'all to come on in tight here. I want you to come in here and listen to me now. Didn't we already know that? We already knew that thing of you got to be smart to be a quarterback. You got to be cool, calm, and collected to be a quarterback. Didn't we know that? Why is it so controversial when Deion Sanders said it? Huh? Let me give you. I want you to look into look into your history here, fellas. You know the comedian Gary Owens, the white guy who's married to the black lady, got another black woman now. You remember that joke he said a few years back? He said, and I'm paraphrasing, if I owned a football team, he would have coached only, he would have chose only fatherless D linemen. And then he would tell them that he found their father and he left a ticket for their father to come watch their sons play. And then he said he'd do that so when the linemen would look up in the seat and see that their father didn't show up, they'd be able to channel that anger and aggression and perform better against their opponent. Gary Owens said that. It wasn't controversial when he said it. So why is it controversial when Deion Sanders said it? There was no backlash when Gary Owens said it. White man married to a black woman. Wasn't racist then. And it was a joke, but it was real. And see, whenever a black man is speaking and saying real things, there's always some sort of backlash. There's always some sort of controversy. Even here on this page. Everything that I'm telling you guys is something that you heard from your grandparents. Everything that I'm telling you guys is something that you heard from the generations who came before. But a lot of you ladies, especially, and a lot of you plantation simps, you say what I'm saying is controversial or is hate. And I'm telling you the same thing your grandmothers told you. I'm telling you the same thing your grandparents told you. Aren't I? Aren't I? I'm giving you the same wisdom that I'm giving my sons. Stay out of trouble, work hard, don't have a bunch of babies, take your time, enjoy life. But you say I'm full of hate when I tell you. When I tell you ladies to stop twerking across the tables, put some clothes on, stop having sex with Tom, Dick, and Harry, you call it hate. When I call you out for your baby mamaism, you call it hate. When I tell these men to explore their options overseas, in other words, they got songs written about it, you know. When I tell these men to see what's out there, y'all call that hate. That's not what it is. In effect, this is truly love. There's no amount of money you guys can pay me to sit here every night and subject myself to this public scrutiny. There's no amount of money worth this. Where I go out in public and people, you know, people trying to write the bar association on me. You got these black powerites calling me up, and then I got to give them all these facts. The thing is, once I hit them with them facts, they stop calling me. I've noticed that. They don't call me. I'm on here dispelling all these lies about black men, and y'all call that hate because I'm responding to what's being said negative about the brothers. That ain't hate. That's the truest form of love. Nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and bring Under the Blood, and we're going to bring Jesus up in here. We'll be right back, and the link is going to be in the chat room.
Under the blood, me say me under the blood. Jesus cover me under the blood. Under the blood, me say me under the blood. Jesus, you been cover me under the blood. In the morning when me wake up, and the blood that Jesus me take up. And when me feel like me, I go break up. Put the blood on me face just like a makeup. In the morning when me wake up, and the blood that Jesus me take up. And when me feel like me heart break up, put the blood on me face just like a makeup. Under the blood, under the blood, under the blood. Jesus cover me, under the blood. Jesus you will cover me, under the blood. Me say me.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Y'all hit the number 1 button if you can hear me. The link is in the chat room, man. We're talking about some real stuff tonight. People got a problem with what Deion, Coach Prime said, but it was the truth, right? We got a whole, what did he say? He said women who raise boys, right? Women who raise boys typically, and they grow up impoverished, they're hungry. You know, they don't get what they're supposed to get, right? They living in a ravenous lifestyle. You know what I mean? They're desperate. They get living in desperate situations. You see what I'm saying? So why is this something that we're fighting about? Why are we fighting about this? Where's the controversy in that? Why don't we just try to figure out what can we do better? Nevertheless, I want to bring these 2 young brothers up in here, man. Shout out to Mr. Allen. Shout out to Vintage Negro. Thank you guys for coming on in. How you doing today, gentlemen? How you doing today? I hope y'all having a great day. Let's talk about it, man. You know, Vintage Negro, you up, man. What do you think, man? Tell me, the floor is open.
Well, it's just, you know, black, you know, especially black women, they don't want to hear the truth about the whole situation. Me, as raised by a single mother, even though my mom was married when she had me, things went wrong, but I still was raised by a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to control your emotions when you're a young man, you have no male guidance.
Yeah.
It's very hard. I'm almost 40 years old, and it's still hard for me to control my emotions, but I have to, because I didn't have the male figure.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's very hard. And people don't realize that.
Let me try to explain something to you all about the male psyche. I want y'all to listen to me. And I'm coming from the perspective of a father of 3 boys that I'm raising right now between the ages of 6 and 15. Now, I got 2 boys that are with me most of the time. I got 1 boy, I see him every now and then. I've been in a 8-year custody battle with his mama, and I know I need to get hold of this boy soon, okay? I'm already hearing complaints about him having behavioral problems. I understand what the problem is. You ain't got no daddy at the house tearing your ass up when you out of pocket. Let me give you an example. My oldest son, okay? My oldest son is 15 years old. When he was about 2 years old, he started preschool, not preschool. He started going to the daycare. And for those parents who have children, you know what happens when them kids go to the daycare. They go from your sweet little angels that listen to everything you say and love you to these sick ass little kids with snotty noses, and they picking up bad habits and they cutting up. My oldest son's mother told me this. She said, Dennis, I was in the grocery store today and Dennis fell out on the floor and threw a tantrum. I said, gotcha. Check. So I knew how, we call them repeat offenders, just like grown-ups, kids. The first time you get caught and convicted of a crime, that ain't the first crime you committed. You committed. It's the first time you got caught. So what I knew was, at some point, he was going to try that with daddy. So guess what happened? I waited till he tried it. He tried it. I picked him up by his arm, smacked him on his booty a couple of times, shocked the bejesus out of him, put him in timeout, and he was like, it never fell out on the ground again. Okay? So what is that? What did I just do to that child? Now, he was a small child. You don't have to hit him hard. You ain't got to hit them when they little like that, 1, 2 years old. Just pop them on the butt. Oh, shit, what the hell happened? Make sure they feel it. But what does that do? It presents your child with a choice. I can either, right, let my emotions cause me to show out because I'm angry about something. I didn't get a piece of candy. Somebody's leaving. I'm having what is called a separation anxiety. I can let my emotions flow out and what do they call, and emote that way, or let that be my therapy session and risk the chance of getting popped on my ass if I do, and suffer that pain. So I got a choice between physical pain, which is real and relevant to me, or deal with this psychological, emotional pain. These are my choices. Now, a lot of you all are like, oh my God, how dare you? How dare you say that? When you're dealing with little boys, if you don't get that tyrant that is within each one of them under control very soon, then you're going to be raising a psychopath, a sociopath, someone who does not control his emotions, who is going to be a terror, who is undisciplined. Some of y'all got a problem with that. I believe in spanking asses, especially when they little. Now, at the point where a boy gets too old, you too goddamn big. You just, at 13, 10, 11, 12, they too goddamn big. That's too much trouble. You got to get them when they're young. If you get them when they're young, then you don't have to do so much. See, a lot of y'all let these books teach y'all how to raise these kids, and these kids are now running your households. I've been able to take my kid from the age of 1 or 2 years old. I've been able to take my children to 5-star restaurants, fully dressed with suits on, with nice shoes. They stand there and act just like gentlemen. They eat their food. If I brought them back on here, they will tell you the difference between continental style and American style. They will tell you how to place their napkins, how to cut their steak, how to order, how to speak up. You understand? And you can do that when you impose discipline on your children. The first lesson that your sons need to understand is discipline, because without discipline, nothing else flows through that. You can't even teach them masculinity properly until you get discipline there. And everything flows through your masculinity. Let me say that again. Every lesson that a man learns flows through your masculinity, guys. It flows without masculinity is the doorway to manhood. Masculinity is the doorway to manhood. So everything you need to learn as a man flows through your masculinity. So what have I done? I've enhanced my son's masculinity by what? Forcing them to do manly things at young ages. Not only do they have to be responsible and disciplined and control their emotions, but they got to get out there and do what most of you men won't do. Can you imagine having 500 fights by the time you was 13? Some of y'all ain't had but 3 or 4 fights at the school. Imagine fighting 3 to 6 times a week since you was 5 years old. You getting kicked in the stomach. You getting punched. You taking headshots. Not so, because we don't, we try to limit the headshots because they're kids. But imagine that, even though it's a kid fight, but think about that. Even though it's a kid fight, damn, that kid is my height. Yeah, y'all both 170 pounds and y'all both 18. Y'all not that big. Yeah, but see, he's my height. He can do damage to me. You're not fighting adults, but you're still fighting somebody who's comparable to you. You got to get your courage up, and you got to step in front of another child, another human being who's trying to tear your head off. Do you have that level of courage, men? This is how I challenge my sons, and this is why I reward them so well, because I've forced them to enhance their masculinity. I'm gonna tell you now, my sons are already on a path to be much better men than me, because I didn't have this as a father directing my steps and directing me and pushing me towards masculinity. I had football coaches. I had weightlifting coaches. I had what most of y'all had. I did not have a father who was steering the bus to drive me through masculinity. I didn't have that. You know who had it? Michael Jordan had it. Kobe Bryant had it. All these great men that we see, they had strong fathers in their life. And so I just want you, and maybe we should talk about that for you guys who do have children, especially if you have boy children. But remember that your masculinity, all your manhood flows through the door of your masculinity. You understand? If you don't learn anything, masculinity comes first, then comes education. Then, because you have to look at it from the context of a man, a masculine man. And that should be your purview of the world. And once you do that, greatness is right around the corner, especially considering that we have a dearth of masculinity existing in the world. It's easy to outdo most of these dudes because there's not enough men out there, real men. But anyway, I done got long with it. My man, Mr. Allen, brother, welcome to the broadcast, sir. What would you like to add, sir?
You're absolutely correct in your approach.
Thank you, brother.
I did judo, jiu-jitsu, American wrestling. What I discovered when I wrestled, everybody in my weight class back then had been wrestling for since the age of 3. So they had a wealth of experience on me. I had physical strength and skill.
Yeah.
But pretty much they already set their sons up on a path where they can go through the trials and learn who they are. And these weren't people that look like us. So your path, the path you set your sons on, that's the right path, sir. That's the right path.
Yeah. And did you hear when the boy said, and I don't mean to cut y'all, I want to get everybody in, but did you hear when the boy said, when I'm dealing with, this is a child telling you guys this, when I'm dealing with a little boy who's raised by a single mother, I'm going to beat him up until he gets emotional and then defeats himself. Haven't we seen that happen to real grown-ass black men? Things get tough, adversity gets hard, and they get emotional and just quit, or they resort to drinking alcohol, or they go have sex with a whole bunch of women and start smoking weed because they need a coping mechanism because they haven't been taught to deal with those emotions or control those emotions. I'm teaching my son, I've been teaching them this since they was 3, 4, 5 years old. You heard what they said, control your emotions or your emotions will control you. This is what I'm teaching my sons, my little black sons, who are going to carry forth our legacy. And if they know that, and if y'all know that to be true, then maybe we should incorporate that into something that we should be doing. But Mr. Allen, I want to get some other brothers in here because everybody's in. Alvin Holden, shout out to Magnum Group. Thank you so much, man. Alvin Holden, what would you like to add, brother? What would you like to add?
First of all, once again, thank you. Thank the panel and the chat. More than anything, This is just proof that the lovely ladies think that manhood is like putting on a pair of pants. Doesn't require any kind of work. Doesn't require any kind of hardship. And this is proof that they also don't know how things work, because these colleges have been making these kinds of judgments for a long time. Deion was just giving you said it earlier, Deion was just giving everybody game. Like, yo, this, it really matters. And you really need to think about how you raise your children properly.
Yeah, you do. And here's the other thing. Boys are different than girls. All that psychological stuff and bargaining with them when they're misbehaving, all you're teaching them to do, you're negotiating with a tyrant, and that's never going to work out for you. You don't give a tyrant any room. Kids at 1 or 2 years old, they don't have them type of rights. My sons will tell you they were doing this. I said, this is your job. Your job is to do martial arts. That's your job. That's why you get allowance. You dump the trash and go fight somebody every Thursday night. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is your job. Just like a man got a job, you work in the coal mine, you drive a dump truck, you're a pipe fitter, whatever you are. This is your responsibility as a man. You impose responsibilities of men on your sons as soon as they realize that they have penises. It's the day they start standing up and peeing, that's when they become a man. And you start treating them like that. Of course, you can't have them out there with a jackhammer, in the middle of the night, digging up the street corner. But what I'm saying is it starts early as possible, man. Slim Shady, welcome to the broadcast. And I know we're going to go over on this one, man. I could already tell. But because I want to get everybody, because this is an important conversation. Slim Shady, brother, what would you like to add to the conversation, sir?
I'd just like to say that I'm fairly impressed with how well you brought your boys up, how well-mannered they are, how well-spoken they are, and the amount of actual engagement and battle they've been in is fairly impressive. My father was a wrestling coach, so the age of 6 or 7, he had me and my brother push the beds out every weekend, and he had us going at it. So by the time I got to middle school, he would have us come and wrestle at the high school with his boys. We used to give them hell. So it's important to have that discipline, to build that confidence that you need to have that confidence to be able to kind of keep moving forward in life. So I just want to say that.
Did you see, I forget what was the brother, Jalen? What was Jalen, the quarterback that played for the Eagles? What was his name, Jalen? So you see his dad had him squatting 500 pounds at 16. Dad was the coach. That don't happen. You don't get to that level unless you start a couple of years before that. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what an involved father does, right? So by the time he gets to high school, he's 16 years old. He went in the championship at 198 pounds. You can't beat that. And ladies don't seem to get that. Mr. X, you're excellent, sir. Welcome to the broadcast. Brother, what would you like to add to the conversation about either what Deion said or maybe some of the points that I brought up? The floor is open, sir.
I want to say, my biggest, what I'm going to go on is my sons. I got twins. Once again, I got 2 little boys. And as far as like the martial arts and the training and the discipline, and they learn a lot more than I think. But you touched on it. They learn a lot more, and those are those values that tap on along the way, and you can into other avenues in your life. But hey, Uncle D, my one, Izzy, Israel, he's gonna learn jiu-jitsu, and Isaac's gonna learn boxing. They can cross train. They can work it together, because I kind of know that this is the direction that we need to go. That strong, disciplined father figure. Stay in, be behind them. Hey, push it.
And you know what the thing is, fellas? It doesn't always have to be combat sports. It could be golf. Look at Tiger Woods. As long as boys have to meet a challenge, as long as they have to step up, as long as they got to learn something, as long as they got to deal with some adversity, that's what you're trying to teach you. Because then guess what? You got to control. You out there on the 17th tee, you got some asshole running right up behind you, man. He's one shot behind you. You cannot make, you got to have ice in your veins. You got to make this shot. And we've seen Tiger Woods do that hundreds of times, thousands of times in his career. And he got that from his dad, right? You understand? His dad taught him, son. I heard a story. He said his dad said he used to, right when he was about to tee off, his dad would just throw his gloves on the ground or just start talking loud and saying stuff just to mess with him, just to make him mad, just so he could get a rise out of him. And so what I'm saying is, fellas, you got to teach these boys how to control their emotions. Otherwise, they're going to end up like they're going to end up like a lot of these football players that we see, man, burnt out, getting in trouble. You know, Warren Sapp, trouble. Look at all the great defensive guys that just, damn, bro, what happened? You know. Anyway, Timothy Harden, thank you so much, sir. What would you like to add to the conversation?
Man, I appreciate you having me up. You always catch me right when I'm getting ready to go to bed, but I had to get on.
Yeah.
And I guess more or less as a monument personally, and a testament to which I had my dad in my life up to age 52.
Okay.
And my dad was a great man. He was a pastor preacher. He was a electronics technician. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you just 3 examples. And with that, commend you for how you're doing. And I'm an example of how that works out. 3 things stand out. Number 1, when I was 1, my best friend lived across the street. So we were toddlers. I got out in the street, walked across the street because I wanted to go play with him. Mm-hmm. I got my little legs and training pants tore up all the way back to my yard.
Discipline, right. Yeah.
Never did that again.
Just because you want it don't mean you can have it right now. You might want to see your friend. Love is compelling you to go across the street and see your buddy. But you had to think about that. Nah, I don't know. I don't want that immediate response, that pain to my body. Right. Go ahead. Yeah.
They laughed at because we would shout at each other across the street, and my mother teased me about that the other night. She said you would slip that curve and jump back like somebody was falling off a cliff trying to get back up on it. Yeah. Man, I learned my timetables by the time I was in the 1st grade. Mm-hmm. My dad was an electronic technician. Math was his thing. I already had the scoop on the timetables and division, but well before I think he learned that in the 3rd or 4th grade.
Yeah.
I already had that down. And discipline. They made me write them out. Yeah.
Discipline. Discipline is the art of learning to control your emotions.
An art of learning to control.
It's been plenty of days. Y'all been tired, but you got to have your butt in that seat at 8:30 or 6:30 for you, or 5:30 for you military guys, maybe earlier. So
government guys 6 o'clock in the morning.
There you go. JJ, and Cowboy Monk. Go ahead. What would you like to add, JJ?
Hey, let me say this real quick. I'm gonna be real brief about it. God gave us all our emotions. We feel all the emotions, and God understands our emotions because He gave them to us. Now, there's a such thing as righteous rage. There's one thing to be angry. He said, "Anger and sin not." But it's one thing to be angry and defend yourself, and stand up for yourself. And when you feel some type of superhuman strength, you don't understand how strong that is if you never felt it. Let's just say I've had people try to come at me, and I've done some things.
All right, so here's the thing, brother. As far as this righteous rage, what is it? I mean, we're talking about when you got these baby mamas and they're raising these children, and these boys don't know how to control their anger and rage. How is that related to what we're doing?
They don't compare. They don't compare.
Okay.
They might be sometimes, they're human too, and they have rights. Don't forget that. They might have a situation where everybody is at them, and then they looked at as the bad guy all the time because they can't control their emotions. Now, somebody that don't like trouble and stay out of trouble, and they're more believable when they snap.
The problem is we got boys who know they're getting in trouble and they still don't stay out of trouble because they let their emotions get the best of it. There's plenty of us that got kids because damn it, we let our emotions get the best of us. That's kind of the problem that we're dealing with: self-control and discipline. Thank you so much, JJ. Sigma Black Ronin, brother, what would you like to add to the conversation? And then after that, we're gonna go to King Barracuda.
Growing up,
it was hard to find I struggled a lot emotionally. I struggled a lot emotionally growing up, and coming from a widowed home, and it's. I look back after listening to your kids. I look back and I realized the key component of a lot of troubles that happened was the lack of the male figure, the authoritarian male figure and leader. In my case, mine's passed, but to me, if it wasn't for other men stepping in to help me better control my emotions, better understand, understand what it is, and also push me towards a more scholastic learning of stoicism and masculinity and understanding these things. I don't know where I would be. And you getting a hold of your son so early is going to benefit them so much. And it's already showing. The fruits are already showing already.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, I've instilled so much in my sons, even when they're not with me, they still got me in their head. They still don't want to do anything that would make me upset. And see, that's what my adopted father did to me. Now, let me tell you something. It wasn't a whole lot of extracurricular programs I was doing, but I was working. I was cutting grass. I was washing cars. So you can also learn these traits from hard work. You got a job, bring that boy to the office, bring that boy to work with you. He's 6, 7 years old. Don't let him hang around mama all day on during the summer. You bring him to work with you. You bring him to the plumbing shop. You bring him to the electrical shop. Even if he thinks he might not be doing anything, the fact that he thinks he's working is the emotional or the psychological training that he needs to know that, hey, this is what I got to do. He might not be doing anything but bringing you your tape measure, but him thinking him working is sufficient. You see what I'm saying? So y'all keep that in mind. King Barracuda, man, we got a few minutes left, brother. What would you like to add to the conversation?
Try to keep it short and 4 points. Especially what Mr. Ronan said. Fortunately, there was people there, other men there. I'm fortunate as well. Like I'm fortunate, me thinking I can do it all by myself. My son, husband self, that I'm so smart. I don't need a dad. I'm fortunate that there were father figures in my life, and that my dad never really went away, despite me trying to push him away. I wish I knew the information of single mother stats, but as a kid who didn't study that, I just consider myself fortunate, and I have a lot of empathy for those who were raised by single mothers. 2, I'm lucky that I believed in holding myself accountable, and my mother and my father and everybody, because I want everybody else to do better. I'm fortunate to do that because
you got about 30 seconds left, bro, because we got to wrap up.
Okay. But yeah, that's basically it. I'm fortunate. I'm happy to see that what you're doing with your sons.
Yeah,
that's a display of what needs to be happening.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate that. Let me tell you guys this, man. I want y'all to understand my primary motivation for why I do so much with my sons and why I keep myself the way I am. I'm too goddamn selfish. I don't think any other man is worthy of raising my sons. It is my selfishness that makes me impose myself on my sons. This is going to be, y'all going to do what I say do, because I have a plan, and I want you. I don't think other men are good enough to raise you. Not a stepdaddy, not a baby, not your mama's new boyfriend, not the uncles. None of them are good enough to raise you, because you're mine. And I got high self-esteem, and I love myself, and I'm going to give you the best, and I'm going to make you guys the best men you could be, so that when you come forth and you sit at the table of men, other men will respect you. They don't have to like you. They don't have to love you, but respect you. That's all I want for you boys, because at the end of the day, respect is the currency of masculinity. And I don't, in other words, how much respect you garner from other men lets everybody else know what kind of man you are. And that's what I want for my sons. If you get a lot of respect from a lot of men, it don't matter if you're rich. It'd be nice to be rich, but it don't matter. Y'all got a lot more respect for Muhammad Ali than you do for Floyd Mayweather. Y'all do. Even though Floyd is a whole lot richer, and we appreciate Floyd, and we respect Floyd, but it's not the level of respect that we have for Muhammad Ali. Same thing for people like Malcolm X, as opposed to some of these rich rappers. We respect him a whole lot more. So think about that, fellas. I want y'all to think about that. That said, look, man, I can dwell on this, but I want y'all to go join Alvin Holden over there, and his channel is Simple Shit TV. And y'all go do the after show. I might pop through. But other than that, man, I've said enough. Thank you all so much. Vintage Negro, Mr. Allen, Alvin Holden, Slim Shady, Your Excellence, Tim Harden, Sigma Black Ronan, Ken Barracuda, and of course, JJ Diesel, Cowboy Monk, and everybody else that came through. Nevertheless, as I always said this time, man, I appreciate y'all. This is Uncle D, and I'm out.